In a torrent of tweets, President Trump is escalating his attacks on Joe Biden and his son's dealings in Ukraine and calling on the former vice president to end his 2020 bid.
Wait, can I just stop? Why is he so scared of Joe Biden? I mean, Alex, do we have any polls out? Have any polls come out recently in any swing states on Joe Biden? I don't understand.
Really
he's petrified and freaked out about Joe Biden. This guy. I mean, he's
obsessed.
He's as scared of Joe Biden as he is to release his tax returns.
It's Wisconsin right there.
Wow.
Yeesh.
Holy cow. Joe Biden smokes him by 9 points. I'm not good in math, but that's outside the margin of error, and those are voters?
Okay.
Wow, that's really bad.
So Biden has...
that explains why Donald Trump is so freaked out.
Obsessed.
And acting like a little baby, as he likes to say, about Joe Biden. Joe, Mika makes you look like a little baby. She's so tough on me. That's what Donald said. Joe, Mika makes you look like a little baby. Mika's so tough on me. Well, he's looking like a little baby right now.
Yeah, well, no need to be tough.
Because he's getting pounded by Joe Biden in Wisconsin. That's a state he has to win, and Biden's just tearing him to shreds.
Well, the story kind of speaks for itself.
Wow.
All right, Biden has been responding on the campaign trail, and in an op-ed published Friday...
Hold on a second. Can I see that Wisconsin poll again? Because I don't believe it. No, I don't believe that.
The numbers are staggering.
Let's just keep these up for a second. So Mike Barnicle, Biden is, let's keep these up. If we look at Biden.
Fox News poll.
There's a Fox News poll.
Thanks, Fox News.
Joe Biden is crushing Donald Trump. This is worse than Nixon beat McGovern. This is worse, I think, probably than FDR beat Alf Landon. I mean, Donald Trump is the Alf Landon of our time here. And look, even Bernie Sanders losing to a self-professed socialist. Oh my God, he's losing to him by 5 points. And by the way, Bernie's not hiding it. He's going, I'm a socialist. And he's still losing to Bernie Sanders. I don't know. I know that most plurality of Americans want to see Donald Trump impeached. Yeah. I understand that, and it's getting worse by the day. But could you just look at those numbers? Aren't those shocking numbers that Donald Trump is getting beaten this badly in a Fox News poll in Wisconsin? It kind of takes your breath away, doesn't it?
Well, yes, Joe, and it's also a partial explanation for why President Trump reacts like a whiny baby every time Joe Biden's name is mentioned. And you can explain it with just a few words.
Hold on, Mike. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
Could we put that poll back up again? Because I just can't believe.
Are you talking about the Fox poll?
Yeah, the Fox News poll. This is Wisconsin, the swing state. Yeah, and where the state that he's supposed to be stronger than any other Midwest state. And Fox News has a poll out that shows that Donald Trump is getting crushed politically by Joe Biden. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, you can explain his paralysis of fear at the mention of Joe Biden's name by just a few words. Western Pennsylvania, Macomb and Wayne counties in Michigan, that's Detroit and the suburbs, and Wisconsin. Just those few words, and poof, Donald Trump is a private citizen. Poof, gone.
Yeah.
Well, you look at it. Susan Del Percio, I don't know if you were on set when we put the poll up, but let's put this new Fox News poll up. It's of Wisconsin, which is supposed to be the swing state.
Yeah.
If Tim were alive, he'd say it's about Wisconsin. Donald Trump, despite the fact, my God, he's spending tens of millions of dollars. He's spending so much money, and his numbers just keep going down. Does this shock you that Joe Biden is beating him so badly and that Bernie Sanders, a self-professed socialist, is beating him in Wisconsin?
No, because Trump's policies, both in manufacturing and the farmers, are hurting people from Wisconsin and all across this country. So they're not happy with him. But what's particularly interesting of that poll, and if you could just keep it up a little bit longer, that Fox poll, is that you see that Donald Trump is just at 40%. It's the other people, Biden, Warren, and Sanders, they are in the 40s. Biden in the high 40s, which means there's not a lot of there's a set base there that Donald Trump is not breaking above, and that, as an incumbent, should be really scary to the president.
You know, Nick Confessori, you actually look at what's happening not only in Wisconsin, but also in Michigan. We've seen headlines in Macomb County plants being shut down, General Motors. The union's still in a strike. Donald Trump refuses to get involved. He claims to be the working man's president. He continues to let those union workers rot on the protest line, will not get involved on the side of working Americans. You look at Pennsylvania and these states that are Ohio that are supposed to be Donald Trump's ace in the hole. They are, of course, along with the rest of America, suffering through the worst manufacturing recession, some would say depression, in over a decade.
Well, listen, Joe, it's important to show our viewers that Wisconsin poll. Again, I think a few people probably missed it.
It's a Fox News poll.
All right, good. So,
yeah,
look, I looked at that and I see
poll.
3 Democrats who can't get over 50% against the most unpopular president in modern history. I see that Warren and Sanders are basically tied with him, and Biden is the one person who cuts above. But that does not look to me like a slam dunk for anybody. It looks to me like a fluid election where a lot can happen. I agree with you that the president's policies, his trade policies, how they've hurt farmers and manufacturing workers, GM is one thing, the Carrier plant, remember that, is not a great predicate for him. And the question is whether people are going to vote in 2020 on these pocketbook issues, or kind of vote on this, cultural blood feud about, kind of America and how white it is and how, kind of different it is, how it's changing. I'm not sure what the frame for the election is going to be yet. So I see those numbers in Wisconsin, that great Fox News poll, and I see a race where a lot can happen. A lot.
Yeah. Certainly a lot can happen. You're sitting at 39%, though, Mika, about a year before the election. As a president, after spending tens of millions of dollars online, he's raising money, and his burn rate is pretty extraordinary. It's not moving anything.
It would explain his focus on Joe Biden. But NBC News correspondent Mike Memoli is reporting on how Biden is struggling to respond to the president's attacks. And Mike joins us now. So what are the challenges, Mike?
Well, Mika, first, I think we have to acknowledge at the outset that, especially given the incredible pace of developments in this impeachment controversy, I don't think we know exactly yet how this is playing politically. There was a Monmouth poll last week that showed that, yes, a plurality of Americans tend to be giving some credence to what the president has been saying about Joe Biden and whether he was using his position to help protect his son, something that every independent fact checker has debunked. But on the other hand, Joe, I don't know if you know this, there was a Wisconsin poll yesterday by Fox News that showed that Joe Biden still continues to be in a strong position. There was also a Fox News poll in South Carolina in the primary showing that Biden has a very commanding lead in that primary as well. But
so
I think
Mike,
for a lot of Democrats,
right there, because can I stop you right there, Mike? Because it's very interesting. No, I'm serious. I think for viewers just walking in, we'll show you the Wisconsin poll next hour. But you bring up another significant poll, and that is South Carolina. We've been saying this all along. The Democratic electorate that is going to elect the next Democratic nominee does not look anywhere near Iowa. It doesn't look like them. It doesn't look like New Hampshire voters. It looks like South Carolina voters. So I found it fascinating that as all of this was being stirred up, I wanted to know what South Carolina said, because you look at South Carolina voters, they accurately reflect what Super Tuesday voters are going to look like and what the majority voters look like. And there, of course, as you were about to allude to, Joe Biden running away with it at 41%. He's actually up 6 percentage points, Mike, since July.
Joe, the fact of the matter is that as long as Joe Biden remains in commanding position as he is, especially with African-American voters, he is going to be in the commanding position in this race. This race was won or lost for Hillary Clinton on Super Tuesday in those southern states where the majority of the electorate in some cases is African-American. And so that's the argument you're hearing from the Biden campaign. But there are an awful lot of Democrats who lived through 2016 and who worry that the president and his allies are trying to turn Joe Biden and Ukraine into Hillary Clinton and her emails, and they're wondering why the vice president, until just recently, the last few days really, has not been as forceful publicly in responding as his campaign has been behind the scenes to this daily, assault from the president. And when I talk to Biden advisors, you hear two things. One is that these conversations about his family, in particular his son Hunter, are difficult ones to have with him, that there has always been a sort of a wall of privacy that he's had around his family, especially given all that they've gone through. But the second is, when you have a president who is self-immolating almost on a daily basis right now, now is the time when Democrats want to see a president. And they think the vice president is responding in that serious and presidential way. And that's, I think, something that we're going to continue to see here going forward from him.
NBC's Mike Memoli, thank you very much. We'll be reading your new reporting at NBCnews.com.
And by the way, Mike, thank you so much for bringing those Fox News polls to our attention. We'll take a closer look at them next hour.
Makes a lot of sense. It really explains behavior.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.